Welcome. This video is predicting that there will be a black swan, unexpected shock event in the stock market on February 25th, 2026. The date that this video is posted on the social media platform that you are watching it on proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time. As does this time-stamped email. As we can see here, this email was composed on February 18th. And as does this forensic notes PDF document. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. Okay, so a black swan event is an expected shock, something that is shocking, an event that is unexpected by most people, not all people. This term, black swan event, is often associated with a financial event, but not always. So there were, for example, stock market declines. The best example probably of a black swan event in the financial market that occurred in one day would be Black Monday in 1987, when the Dow lost its record amount in terms of percent in one day, which was almost 23%. The Dow lost on that one day. It was a black swan event. All right, welcome. This video is predicting that stocks on Wall Street will crash on February 25th, 2026. It will be, if you will, a black swan event, an unexpected shock on the stock market on precisely February 25th. Okay, this video will be talking about how it is that Trump's State of the Union speech is a prophetic sign that reveals this prediction. Not only is this prediction for stocks crashing on this date, it is predicted that this will be the beginning salvo, if you will, the beginning event of the biggest stock market crash in all of history. That is also what is being predicted. And so some people are out there saying that there will be a pullback or a recession at some point, or even there are those few that say there will be a crash in the near future. There's very, very few, although they do exist, very, very few people are expecting in the near future, like 2 days from now, in other words, the beginning of the biggest stock market crash in all of history. But being able to predict the precise date of this black swan one-day mega loss in the stock market on February 25th obviously makes this prediction supernatural in origin. The purpose of this prediction is to prove that the righteous Christian God of the Bible is the true God. Case closed. No exceptions, no mixing it with New Age philosophy or Eastern religion, none of that. No, the God of the Bible is the same God as Islam. None of that nonsense. This prediction will prove that the righteous Christian God of the Bible is the true God. And if this isn't enough, this prediction for this precise date and this big crash on this one day, if this isn't enough for the hardcore, fundamentalist, radical, agnostic atheist, which all pretty much agnostic atheists are, radicals, fundamentalists, then the reasons that I'll be providing in this video will prove that this is from God. Because no one is creative enough to concoct these reasons in their own imagination. And so to conclude, after hearing the reasons in this video and this prediction coming to pass, that this was a coincidence makes you an utter fool and completely irrational. But that said, human beings aren't rational, including the ones that think they are, that arrogantly think they are when they are the least rational. The agnostic atheists, the materialists, the majority of our culture today, the majority of the population in Western culture today, who tell themselves, well, there may or may not be a God, but it's impossible to know because there's no evidence for God, which is the biggest lie of all of history. It's fairy tales for adults. But the truth is, the reason why they choose this religion, because every worldview is a religion, and this core belief, there is no evidence for God, is the truth is it's spiritual, and they do not want there to be a righteous Christian God that they are accountable to. For them, it is icky to consider praying to a God when they wake up in the morning. That's just not them. They do not want that. And so they have what psychologists call belief perseverance, which is when confronted with information that contradicts a person's worldview, they block it out and continue with life as if they never heard the information, which is what will happen with the hardcore atheist, which all of them are, the hardcore agnostic atheist, when this prediction comes to pass, in addition to even hearing the reasons. But they are making a grave mistake because they know, they've heard it. In the West, it's pretty much impossible, except for maybe in the young generation, to encounter someone that doesn't understand the gospel of the Bible. They know the consequences. They've heard about it. They don't believe it, but they've heard about it. But when this prediction comes to pass, it'll prove to them that these consequences are real. They're on their way to you know where. For why? For rejecting God. Because God gave us free will to provide for us the opportunity to choose. Because if God were to desire a relationship with the creature and then after it being born, stand in front of it and say, hey, welcome to life, I'm God, love me or else, it wouldn't be genuine, sincere love. And so no one wants to marry a robot or someone who is forced to love them. And likewise, neither is God wanting this. And so he gives us the opportunity to have us choose whether or not we want to be in eternity, because some people don't. And whether or not they want to be with a righteous Christian God of the Bible for eternity, and most people don't. So they get the free will choice. Okay, let's move on. So Trump, God's trumpet that he uses to trumpet and highlight his prophetic signs, will deliver a State of the Union speech on February 24th, 2026. It will symbolize God trumpeting the spiritual state of America, because God is God's trumpet. Trump is God's trumpet. Okay? And the word, in archaic English, the word trump means trumpet, or the sounding of a trumpet. Now, regarding this opening statement here, regarding Trump being the trumpet for God, regarding America's spiritual state, I'm just going to play a short clip regarding this, and I'll be right back. President Trump is God's trumpet that he uses to highlight and confirm his signs. The word trump in archaic English means trumpet, or the sounding of a trumpet. Donald Trump was born on a Sabbath day, and the portion of Torah that was read in synagogues on the day that Trump was born was the passage from the book of Numbers, in which God commanded the making of trumpets. Trump was born exactly 23 months, which happens to be exactly 700 days, before Israel was reborn. And God used Trump in prophetic signs regarding the restoration of Israel. Donald Trump chose his running mate, Mike Pence, and their two names, Trump Pence, hints at trumpets. Trump's presidency, including his election campaign, was synonymous with his border wall of security. Before the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment on ancient Jericho, the Hebrews blew trumpets. Before the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment on the ancient city of Jericho, the Hebrews marched around Jericho's walls of security 7 times over 7 days, while 7 priests blew 7 trumpets. This was a 3 sets of 7. In the book of Revelation, which describes God's judgment in the end times period, there are also 3 sets of 7 judgments. When the Hebrews blew the trumpets at Jericho, it was an announcement from God of judgment on the city of Jericho. Likewise, President Trump's presidency was an announcement of judgment on the nation of America, God's Gentile nation and the only other nation in history besides Israel that was founded on a relationship with God. This is why President Trump's election campaign and presidency were synonymous with his border wall of security, and why on the first day of his presidency, on Inauguration Day, President Trump was exactly 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old, which was 3 sets of 7 and paralleled the 3 sets of 7 in the book of Joshua. Through the symbolic very beginning of Trump's presidency, God announced judgment on the nation. Joshua, the leader of the Hebrews, led them around the walls of security 7 times over 7 days, while 7 priests blew 7 trumpets. On the day that President Trump was elected by 77 electoral votes, the leader of Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, had been in power for exactly 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days. Okay, so this State of the Union speech will symbolize God trumpeting the spiritual state of America. It will symbolize the blowing of trumpets before the collapse of America's walls of security. That's what this particular State of the Union speech will symbolize because of what I'm about to say, because of the prediction that will follow immediately after. So anyway, this will be a parallel with the book of Joshua in the Bible when the walls of security of Jericho collapsed in God's judgment. February 24th, 2026 will be exactly the 34th square number of months after the collapse of stocks on Wall Street on what is known as Black Thursday on October 24th, 1929. This Black Thursday was the opening event, the Black Swan unexpected shock to the stock market that began the big crash in 1929. It began on October 24th, Black Thursday. This, what I'm predicting for February 25th, will be similar to the Black Thursday. That's the prediction. And it just so happens that Trump's speech the day before February 25th will be exactly the 34th square number of months, which happens to be 1,156 months, exactly. The number 34 is the 9th Fibonacci number. And in the Bible, the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment. And the Fibonacci number sequence is from God, and it's found throughout the natural world. It's related to the golden ratio. Okay, so the number 9 is the most important number in God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel. As from the Bible, the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment. The events of 9/11 in Lower Manhattan, next to Wall Street, was a warning of God's judgment. On 9/11, Trump called into Channel 9 News and inadvertently trumpeted that his tower on 40 Wall Street had become the tallest tower in Lower Manhattan. Wall Street as in the walls of security collapsing in Jericho after trumpets were blown. Okay, Trump called into Channel 9 News and trumpeted about his tower on Wall Street, and this was after 2 planes struck 2 towers 17 minutes apart. 2 times 17 is equal to 34. In other words, 34 is a 9/11 number. And I'll add this, actually. On 9/11, the Dow was closed from the prior day's close because the stock market didn't open on 9/11 at 9,605.51 points. 9,605 hinted at 9/11 because the 6 and the 5 hint at 11. So 9,605 hinted at 9/11. This was the number on 9/11. Furthermore, the number of passengers in the second plane, that was 17 minutes after the first plane, was 56, a 5 and a 6. But it was 9,605.51 points, exactly 34 points below the prior day's close, the prior Friday, when it closed the Dow at 9,605.85 points. And so on 9/11, God pointed to the number 34. And that was the day that 2 planes struck the tower 17 minutes apart, 2 times 17. But there's also another deeper reason for that. Because of the date 217 in the Bible on which the flood judgment began, which lasted for 40 days. Hence Trump trumpeting on 9/11 when 2 planes struck 2 towers 17 minutes apart, as in the date the flood began, his 40 Wall Street tower. It is predicted that within hours of Trump's State of the Union speech, him trumpeting the spiritual state of America on the night of February 24th, that stocks on Wall Street will collapse, as in the walls of security that collapsed in Jericho after trumpets were blown on February 25th, 2026. As we can see here, this email was composed on February 23rd. Okay. God bless.